The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Welcome to the Wrestling is Real podcast. I am the King of Podcasts. This is episode 635. Thank you for joining me here on the program. I hope you are following the show through all the different social media channels. You like the show, you subscribe and share if you're catching on the YouTube, wherever you can catch the show. And of course, you always go ahead and bookmark my website, wrestlingisreal.com. Make sure you want to do that as well. So tonight, after my formal introduction, which I really do, enjoy that, I want to go ahead and talk about where WWE is really standing right now. A couple things really spurred up the conversation. When I read what is WWE going into a new era, Busted Open decided to bring up that conversation. Nick Khan spoke with Ariel Helwani, which has been the talk of over the weekend that we've been hearing a lot about. That has also been in a lot of discussion and debate. And the fallout from Summerslam and what we got from that just by watching Monday Night Raw. So I want to put into perspective what I think this is all becoming. As we've already talked about here on the program, it is without a doubt that WWE they're not worrying about competition, okay, in terms of seeing this new wrestling alliance. For those of you not in the know yet, I am referring to the new wrestling alliance, which is all the other companies on television that are working together in a united front to help really just be the alternative, the rabble-rousers of professional wrestling. That's AEW, Impact Wrestling, NWA, New Japan Pro Wrestling, AAA in Mexico. And then you have the other tier of wrestling companies, which would be Ring of Honor, which would be Major League Wrestling, among others. But that's where I'm looking at right now. That's what kind of catches my attention. So the WWE, I call it now, what they're doing is Big Top. Big Top is synonymous with the traveling circus, with their loads of attractions that you're all coming to see. Because WWE doesn't want to be known for one star. They want to be known for multiple attractions, multiple things that people will go and come to watch. That's what they want. They want characters. They want gimmicks. They want to create larger-than-life characters, and they also want to do it their way. They do not want to do the realistic. They're really basically trying to remove themselves so far away from the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era as they can. They're moving into what I call the Big Top Era, because what they want to do is, I think that under what Nick Khan's vision, along with everyone else we know of, because in the Nick Khan interview, he laid out who is the consortium of people that are making the decisions on how WWE is moving forward. So you got the family itself, Nick, along with Vince, with Triple H, with Stephanie, with Kevin Dunn, with Bruce Pritchard. That is your consortium right there. That's your commission on who's making the decisions on what's happening right now. And they are flushing out duplicity, any redundancy in work. That was the digital media divisions. Getting rid of the wrestlers that do not fit the mold of being part of that traveling circus. They're just regular performers. They're good performers, but they're not going to be... They don't want professional wrestlers. They want professional wrestlers that can be sports entertainers. And they're going to build those stars now in a revamped NXT, a rebuilt program. They're going to churn it like an assembly line, bring it all the way up, and see what happens. That is what they want to do. And I think that's the plan they want to go with, and I understand it. The one thing is that we have to understand that some of the things that are being done are not necessarily for us. The IWC, it's not for us, but we have a lot of stars that we like, and it's still wrestling. And it's the most popular wrestling. So to still watch it and be in contention with it and being upset and frustrated by it, sure, we're still going to watch because we grew up on it. We grew up on that same thing. And the fans had their chance to have their say. Okay? Some of the stars that you're seeing right now in AEW that have debuted or have made their way over. You have stars that were not utilized correctly, that could have been used better. Now you have Andrade El Idolo or Malachi Black and the direction they're going with them. Then you have the stars like a CM Punk or Bryan Danielson, which CM Punk came out tonight on Dynamite, just about confirmed the fact that Bryan Danielson is going to be coming in. Those are the wrestlers that people, would have paid to see in WWE because they were major attractions. They were box office, but they do not fit the mold of the company. And, besides everything else, those size guys prone to injury and prone to breaking down. Now, that's because of the grueling schedule. That's because of how they use them. And, the treatment of them was not helpful either. And just the approach. Because you're talking about guys that had chips on their shoulder. They were trying to make a change. Voice of the voiceless. And even that's the fact that CM Punk talks about it. That you could just tell he just feels much more comfortable now. Where he doesn't feel like he's being held back. And he gets to work with a locker room. And that's what Daniel Bryan will be there for. Because the veterans that are coming in, regardless of what you think about the fact of where they came from, it doesn't matter. Okay? When you look at the stars that have come on over and where they come from, you want to talk about Paul White or Mark Henry, you want to talk about Christian Cage, you want to talk about, pick a name. There's a lot of former WWE guys that were there, but they also came from other organizations. And they're all under the same thought process of, well, we want wrestling how it should be. We need a big wrestling company that does straight up professional wrestling. It gives us that big style professional wrestling of wrestling that we want to watch as a sport. That's what they're doing as much as they can. And they have a lot of variety and they have a lot of good stars. And you have different sizes, shapes, colors, creeds, cultures, all of it. It's very diverse. There's equity and there's inclusivity in AEW. And then everything that's going on with that. The exchange of getting other stars coming in, playing together, playing nice with each other. You could say it's like all a kumbaya, but it's something totally different, so totally counterculture to the big top circus that WWE wants to do. That's what they prefer to do. A couple of stories really going to tell you a lot about what's going on tonight. I want to take in some context as we get into the start of the program of what they're doing. So there's a couple of stories that stand out to me that I thought would be good to bring up and comment on. Let's start off with a story that came from over the weekend by Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, which got published in SI.com. Titled Stars Shine as WWE and AEW Ramp Up Competition. So we know that a few weeks ago, and if you look at my TikTok feed, one of the most popular videos I have up there was playing a clip of Vince McMahon being asked about the competition between his promotion and AEW, and he blew it off, that notion, and pretty much tried to blow off AEW as competition. Now, Dave Meltzer is going to say the competition between the two brands has never been more serious, nor has any competition in wrestling dating back 22 years. So Friday night, CM Punk came out, 7-year retirement, set a company record crowd for AEW of 15,316, selling out the United Center in Chicago 4 minutes after tickets went on sale. Also set a single event merchandise sales record of more than $200,000. Preliminary numbers of the top 10 TV markets indicated ratings were up, which it was 1.129 million viewers for the second episode of Rampage. Also, you could say it drew one of the most amazing audience reactions to a pro wrestler in U.S. history, compared to Montreal's reaction to Hulk Hogan in 2002, or Triple H in Madison Square Garden a few months upon his return from a torn quadricep. Now, Punk wasn't advertised to appear. The secret was not well kept. The buzz started building when AEW rushed to book a major arena just a few weeks ahead of Punk's home city, calling it the show The First Dance. And everything was done intentionally, mirroring the way the Chicago Bulls brought Michael Jordan back from retirement. And as the crowd was going crazy for Punk, Jim Ross even used the term Jordanesque to describe it. He has his first AEW match set for All Out, September 5th, in suburban Chicago against Darby Allin. The show sold out instantly, even before fans knew Punk would be there. Once confirmed, the secondary market for the show exploded. There were only 4 tickets on the secondary market, which are the ticket brokers, at less than $367. One of the highest prices to get a pro wrestling event through the secondary market in history. So yeah, hot ticket. People want to go to those shows. Then after Punk's debut, 45,000 fans at Allegiant Stadium for SummerSlam, which we're learning now that some of the things that we're talking about at Allegiant Stadium were kind of overblown in terms of concessions, in terms of how the stadium was being run and the cashless payments. It was over the top. People just decided to go and run with it. So now I realize that some of the reports were, they blew it out of proportion. The returns we saw of Becky Lynch and Brock Lesnar came around. We also saw Roman Reigns defeat John Cena to retain the Universal title in the main event. Then Brock Lesnar comes out. Lesnar versus Lane have been talked about heavily as a future WrestleMania headline, though it is unclear when this inevitable match will take place. And there's bigger shows still being booked coming up. Next 3 big shows they got coming up now will be Survivor Series in Brooklyn. Oh, there's October's Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia, which will be at Barclays Center, by the way, Survivor Series. And WrestleMania will be at AT&T Stadium in Dallas. Meanwhile, over at AEW, they have Bryan Danielson, which is now expected to debut. The result of the non-competition between WWE and AEW, Dave Meltzer writes, is the most interesting for pro wrestling in more than 2 decades. AEW's crowd Friday was the second biggest non-WWE crowd for a U.S. show since 1999. And Arthur Ashe Stadium and the Dynamite Grand Slam on September 22nd should top that. And I think the other show that would have been that big would have been the New Japan Ring of Honor Supercard a couple of years ago. In terms of the ratings, the week of August 2nd, Monday Night Raw was number 2 in the weekly TV ratings race. Dynamite was number 4. It was the first week where 2 different pro wrestling shows have been in the top 4 since 1999, also occurring during the Olympics. And on the 18 to 49 demographic, Raw has often doubled AEW, but that gap is closing. Older talent in WWE, including Goldberg, age 54, Cena, 44, Lesnar, and even Punk at age 42, provide a short-term fix that only works in conjunction with creating new stars. While WWE has a huge advantage in incumbency, the winner of the competition will likely be the company that is most successful at creating new and younger stars. But you have to understand is, even though we have a lot of stars that are getting old, and the ones that are up on top, there's a different thing that's being thought of where, so these older stars are going to get a little more decrepit, a little bit older, not going to work as well. But you find ways to keep them relevant, and then you hopefully find other stars that will be able to replace coming up. And I think part of the thing that will happen, too, in some cases, is with WWE being such an old brand, such a legacy brand, 50 years plus, or WWE, if you remember. And I wouldn't put it past them if they define a way to go ahead, and they already do a lot with the legacy. Who's to say they can't do things with a legacy that they can go ahead and try to create their own Marvel, Disney universe type of thing, DC universe, where they're able to get certain stars and just find a way to, recreate some kind of magic based on their history. Something tells me they're going to go to that point as well. Like, they already do that right now with repurposing all these stars and trying to do that. But the weekly format and the traveling circus, the live shows are getting their crowds back. They're not they're having issues in terms of looking at what the live crowds look like. It looks like they're selling them out. So people are coming back for those shows. And who's coming out to these shows? It's the way it's being targeted. when you have Brock Lesnar, Goldberg, John Cena, and then you have Becky Lynch, or you have, then you're trying to build other stars with Roman Reigns or Bobby Lashley. The younger stars are going to take a back seat. There's the rare times that a younger star or a star that's been a fan favorite, that's a not so much the casual fans, but the diehard fans, the IWC. Well, what the IWC wants to have. Their seat at the table has been removed. They had their chance with CM Punk. They had their chance with Daniel Bryan. And basically, they had their chance with NXT. Because NXT became the platform they could all enjoy. And for me, I don't feel like talking much about NXT TakeOver 36. Sure, that wasn't a bad show. But I don't know what's going to come from that, because I feel like that show's a lame duck now. Yeah, Raquel Gonzalez retained. Adam Cole won. And then you got, Samoa Joe beating Karrion Kross. Yeah, sure. That's all great and good. But when I keep looking at that show, I'm saying to myself, who is coming out of that show being able to go ahead and dominate on the main roster? They're not being built for the main roster. They were always being built to kind of just be able to stay there. Sorry, Kyle O'Reilly won. Sorry, I'm confused. And then Ilya Dragunov, when you look at him, yeah, great match, does not fit on the main roster. And it's not because that match wasn't good. That match would have done well in so many different promotions. But this match over Walter, it wouldn't have done anything with that main casual WWE crowd. Just won't happen. Cameron Grimes over to LA Knight? No. I mean, it just doesn't matter. That's what they're going to do. I mean, I think that out of the stars they have here, they could move LA Knight up. They could definitely move Raquel Gonzalez up if they wanted to, but not yet. And I think Adam Cole, if he decides to stay, they could try to take him up there and see what happens with him. And Karrion Kross is already on his way over to the main roster, and I guess that's pretty much his way to stay. And we'll never know if we're going to see Scarlett back. But that's not going to matter, because the IWC, their seat at the table, they actually had a seat at the table. And I think you're not going to like this, but when Triple H says we're going to give you what you want, it was kind of their way, and all of them being out there, it was kind of their way to let the fans have a chance to kind of say who it goes. In a way, they got a chance to have a seat at the table and say something. It's not there anymore. It's gone. And we're all going to have to come to grips to it. WWE will not consider AEW and the New Wrestling Alliance. They're not going to be considering them competition. They refuse to. And Nick Khan says a lot about that. So let's talk about the Nick Khan interview, because there's so much to unpack out of this. I wish I could have gotten the whole transcript, but I watched the interview. Very good. Nick Khan is such a pro. Smooth, well-spoken, and really made for that role in the corporate suit. Like, that guy just, he's got a hell of a background, and I think he really is well-intentioned with what he's doing. Because the most important thing you can ask for is that in this corporate structure, you do have some people at the top that do have a little bit of it. They're not just yes men. That they actually do. They're very, just don't give a shit. And Vince McMahon doesn't give a shit. That's why he's been on top for all this time. As a CEO or as a chairman, whatever it is, I mean, that company would not be the regalia. It would not be this kind of the ragtag kind of company with this reputation if not for Vince McMahon. And WCW in the same vein without Ted Turner. So Nick Khan gives the don't give a shit attitude. And it fits him. He gets it. This guy worked in Hollywood, man. He worked with these sports people. He worked in CAA, one of the biggest agencies in the world. And he worked in boxing. He worked in sports. Like, he gets it. His background, his experience, all that. This guy earned his spot. And he got the damn broadcast deals. And he has been doing some shit. I think this guy has been pretty exceptional. You might not like the decisions he's made, but in terms of as a corporate figure, this guy's doing it, man. He is kicking ass right now. He is making WWE just a cash machine more than ever. I mean, it's working. And then the idea of, okay, the Saudi Arabia shows, the big shows, the Money in the Bank now, coming back to Vegas. That's Nick Khan. It is him. And imagine if we get to the point where some of these bigger pay-per-views, if they start being put in bigger venues and they decide, okay, now Money in the Bank is going to be expected into a bigger venue. Royal Rumble. You know, there's the thought process of trying to make these shows into big deals. Well, every time they have to go into a big stadium, they're going to have to pull out something pretty good. The SummerSlam show wasn't, you know, they did book some pretty big stars in it. They had some surprises. They did some shit. Was it a great show? No, but I'll tell you what. I mean, that crowd was it looked like they were doing all right with it. Because most importantly, you're not hearing any of these crowds. The smart fans are not there. Or they just are getting drowned out. Whether it's the production being done on television when we're watching on TV, or the stadium, you're not hearing the vociferous crowd. You're not hearing that lash back that WWE wants to avoid. They're not getting any of that. I think they're silencing that all out. And when they do that, then people are going to stop trying. You're going to give up on trying to put the signs out there to bash the company. Because then the signs and all the vitriol, whatever, all that energy goes over to AEW, the New Wrestling Alliance. Because that's what's going to happen. Some of you fans out here, you're going to get tired of bitching at WWE all the time. And then some of you are going to just stay in miserable and just going to incorrigible. Because you just can't help yourself. Because you just want this company to be the end all be all and be what you want it to be. Well, no, stay in your pram, stay in your playpen, and just cry, because that's all you're going to get to do. Because WWE is not going to do anything like this for you. They're not going to cater to you. There's a bigger fan base than you. And NXT, hey, post NXT TakeOver, no bump in the ratings, 685,000 on Tuesday. It's the same crowd every week. That's all you have. And you know those amount of people right there, they probably watch Raw. Or some don't. But you are the audience that is disintegrating yourselves. You're just going to go ahead and, we canceled the WWE Network. Go cancel, cancel. And you'll go away. Well, the company's not worrying about you. This Big Top Wrestling setup? No. Big Top is for a lot of people to watch. So they're going to find other things to get people to watch. They got Logan Paul to come out there? Sure. They'll find other things to make big box office type attractions. They're going to find another way to do it. So let's go into some of the things that Sportskeeda actually pulled out that Nick Khan revealed in the interview with Ariel Helwani. It's been 6 months that Nick Khan's been in, by the way, after George Barrios and Michelle Wilson had left as presidents of WWE. At the time, Vince McMahon fully praised him. Quote, Nick is a seasoned media executive with a deep understanding of our business and a proven track record of generating significant value for sports and entertainment properties. And he's done it. No doubt about it. So with BT Sport and Ariel Helwani, he decided to make... And by the way, it looks like Ariel Helwani was a good place to go because he's a good interviewer. And Ariel Helwani was a client of Nick Khan back in the day. How about that? So here's some of the things they said. Number one, Nick Khan on how much he cares about taking the heat for WWE releases. Quote from him: "When something's a disaster, I want all the credit. When it's a hit, I want none of the credit. If I'm blamed for what the fans don't like, that's good by me." Now that is hardcore. He'll be the bad cop. And it was actually, in a way, it was reinforced because Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful.com actually even said that Nick Khan specifically is willing to take the heat. He's not concerned about prior plans, projects, who the person or married to, how long they've been signed, or what they have going on. And my thing is, that's the right way to go. Because we're talking about business here. We can't play favorites. And this is where the fans out here, they don't understand that part. And I understand you don't understand that part, but that's what Wrestling is Rules for. Because I want to explain the fact that the short term, it sucks right now. We all see that. But I am in complete agreement and in complete confidence that Nick Khan is trying to go the right direction with this company. I still think he has other things about who is in that inner echelon right there of people that are working on things, where Kevin Dunn or Bruce Pritchard are in the place. I think those are two names that we would love to go and try to get removed out of the whole mess. That would be good. But they have loyalty, they have longevity, they basically are they're basically tenured. They just can't just be taken out. And Khan specified that while he cares about people close to him and what they think of him, he couldn't be bothered by people he doesn't know. He essentially said that everyone is entitled to their own opinion. He's willing to take the heat for any of the controversial decisions. He's not worried about being popular. He's trying to get the job done. Get shit done. That's what he's doing. He goes into rumors of WWE being sold. He says, quote, "We're not in any active conversations about that." Yeah, that's it. And when Ariel Helwani wanted to make sure about what they were saying about the promotion being open for business, Nick Khan said, quote, "A couple of things on it. Number one, when I say we're open for business, that means if someone credible calls on anything." Now, this is the other part I like, because this guy is thinking about other ways to make money and thinking about keeping the door open on any chances of any new innovations, any new ideas, any new possibilities, opportunities, and projects. So when he talks about, here you go, NFTs, trading cards, international rates, we'll take the call. We're inherently salespeople, meaning we're not sort of like, no, we don't want to talk to this company. If you pitch us something and you're a credible company, we're going to hear the pitch. We're an entrepreneurial company that Vince McMahon and others have built over the last 35 years or so. And we always want to stay fresh and entrepreneurial. In our minds, when I say open for business, if someone credible calls asking, hey, are you guys for sale? What's your offer? What are you thinking? But it's not. They're not trying to sell. And he even said again, we're not trying to sell. That's not our intent. There are no internal meetings about selling the company. The internal meetings are about growing it and the ability that we think we can collectively have to tremendously grow what the value of this company is now. Then he goes into detail about the releases. When he talks about that, he says, quote, "There's a collective of us. And keep in mind, in WWE, there's one boss. That's Vince, as we all know. So between Bruce Pritchard, Kevin Dunn, Stephanie McMahon, Triple H, they're all involved in these decisions, with ultimately Vince making the final decision on everything." Which is fine. The way you want to have it, Vince is still the ultimate yes, the ultimate green light. But all I want him to be is just that green light. Oversight. I want Vince off the headset on Raw and SmackDown. Somebody else. And I kind of feel like something's happened like that, because we don't hear a lot of the lines we normally get fed. I mean, I think like Corey Graves and Byron Saxton probably do, but for the most part, I don't feel like there's much of that. Not at this time anyway. When it comes to releasing certain talent, he said, quote, "I think ultimately what's looked at is this. Is this person for us going to move the needle now or in the imminent future? That's the question that all those releases need to be answered. Were you going to see a moving of the needle by any of the 41 or 43 stars that were let go? Did Bray Wyatt ultimately move the needle? At one time he did. Braun Strowman, I think it was his contract was the culprit for him. You could say Bronson Reed. You could say Mercedes Martinez. I mean, you could try to put those, but moving the needle of the decibel level, the increase in ratings, an increase in revenue, merchandise, possibilities for that star to be doing other things within the WWE model when it comes to, like, say non-profit or for-profit ventures. He says, quote, "We're not always looking for what's next. We live in the present. We live in the future. We don't live in the past." And I think some people do. The fans do. You do live in the past. You live in the 90s. Stop that. It's great to go back and think about Stone Cold or The Rock and this and that. Okay. We're not getting that WWE anymore. It was something that was done at a time of need. And the company was private and not public at that point. Vince did what he had to do to keep afloat and to overcome. And he did. But right now, what AEW and the New Wrestling Alliance is doing, they're not going to do anything right now to counter-program. And they should not. It's not even close to time for that yet. Because WWE is going to just stay in their own lane. And that's what I said. Stay in your lane. Keep ahead of the times. And you know what? Pay attention to what those other guys are doing, because there might be something they're doing that becomes trending that you're going to have to implement yourselves. You're not going to program wrestler to wrestler, match to match with these guys. No. But for the most part, I feel like with the wrestling that we had on SummerSlam, the matches were fine. But I would just say to Nick Khan, you need to do something to get rid of the stagnation of the regular weekly TV product. Because just having championship contender matches and just having the same stars work with each other over and over and over again with really no value or merit behind those matches. Just filling some time. I mean, you're going to have those wrestlers out there with each other because you need to go and reinforce the fact they're going to have a match in 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week. But what they're doing right now with the matches and then just creating Insta feuds and things like that, it's not working. And they need to find other ideas outside of the normal gamut, outside of contract signings and face-to-faces and whatever they have. Because they're not even trying to go anywhere different. They're just trying to keep it very formulaic. And for them, formulaic means it works for every audience globally. Because remember, we look at the 2 million viewers or the 2.5 million viewers that watch in the USA. But that doesn't even compare to the rest of the world. Do we actually really think about the fact of how many damn people are probably watching worldwide? Do we have any idea? Plus, all the stuff we see on social media that gets pushed out as well. Do you really think about the fact of how big of an audience they actually have worldwide? Which AEW and the New Wrestling Alliance, they don't necessarily have that. They don't have that global reach. But to keep the programming simplified for all the announcers that have to go ahead and dub the show and they have to go and redo the announcing, redo the other stuff, they're not going to deviate too much. And I don't think anybody really thinks about that, but I think that global audience that they have for what they're able to do, it'll be up to the announcers to kind of help build the storyline, build the stories of the matches. And maybe there's a little bit of variation that creates something that leads into the build of the match at the pay-per-view. But we never think about that. Because, of course, we're Americans. We just kind of are a little selfish about that. But we don't think about the audience in Canada, the audience in Mexico, the audience in India, in Europe, in Asia. We don't think about that at all. But this big top traveling circus, This thing can go everywhere. And eventually, they're going to go back out on the road again. And if they want to go wherever they want, they can. They're already going to start going back to Saudi Arabia, however that's going to work. And then eventually, they will get to other countries. And they will be back on tour worldwide. Back on the global tour. Australia, South Africa, wherever they want. They're going to find their way back there. And all those stars are going to be recognized and noticed. You tell me something. Did you think for 1 minute, besides Braun Strowman or Bray Wyatt, sure, different story. You could see that they're marketable. I know what they did in WWE with them, right? But look at the NXT stars you have. The ones that everybody wants to go ahead and praise, right? Karrion Kross or Johnny Gargano or, Samoa Joe. Like, to the rest of the world watching WWE, they're not going to matter. Like, for us, yeah, they look badass, they this and that, or they're great wrestlers. But that doesn't work in the global sense of this company. And that's what they're thinking. They have to serve the betters of the people that are watching worldwide, the internationals. And I think that's part of the thing they have. And then knowing that their audiences, for a number of shows, whether it's WrestleMania or SummerSlam, you got people coming from all around the world to these shows. Don't forget about that. Next, how WWE views AEW, because he went ahead and took on to that as well. And I thought this answer was really good. So, Nick Khan mentioned how WWE does not acknowledge other competition. Quote, "It's not what we do at WWE, what I do, and what we do, we look ahead. Where are we going?" You've got to look at these things like a horse in a race. They put blinders on the horse. Why do they do that? So you're not looking back to see what the other horse is doing. If a horse does that, they'll trip and break their leg. I believe that in my career, I've always operated that way. And WWE has always operated that way. We look ahead. So our decisions are based on what's best for us. That is the course of action they need to take. Many of you will not like that answer. And some of the arguments might be out there. I'm sorry, but you know what? The main company's going to probably consider them petty and childish. And, you're kind of just, in your playpen crying, asking for, you don't want to be silenced. You don't want to get a pacifier. You want something else. You're hungry. You're thirsty. You're wanting to get out and play. You want more. You expect more from that company than you get. And you want to be fed like that all the time, because that's what they did for you for a long time. Really fed into your ADHD, into your attention that you want. Oh, I want this instant match now. I want these big stars now. Don't give me any squash matches. I want real matches. It's funny how AEW Dynamite tonight, the way they booked themselves around with certain matches, because they did not put a whole lot of big book matches on tonight. They did a lot of things were a different direction. They didn't throw CM Punk right away. They give you Orange Cassidy and Matt Hardy. Pretty standard match, but it was good. Close the night with Malachi Black and Brock Anderson, the son of Arn Anderson, and building that out. Now, those matches are not move the needle kind of things. It's not like they're booking big. It's not like Five Labors of Jericho. It's not like, throwing the Young Bucks in a match. No. Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks didn't even wrestle. Actually, none of the EVPs wrestled. And something tells me they're going to probably still pull about 1 million viewers, because I bet you CM Punk moves the needle. And Nick Khan was asked about more hours being added to Raw and SmackDown. Yeah, okay. He said the right thing, right? If he could have more hours of TV, it'll be more advertising. Yeah, that's how he's going to think. He's not worried about anything else. It's like, I get it. But people got upset about it. Whatever. And then finally, that the WWE is always in contact with The Rock for certain ideas. And The Rock actually made a tweet after the live crowds came back on July 15th saying that congratulations, Vince and the WWE Universe, on this big milestone. A live audience is and always will be the backbone of the pro wrestling industry. It will fuel our mana, and I know what this means to all the wrestlers. Welcome back, and as I always say, move the crowd. And so he said, Nick Khan, in this interview with Ariel Helwani, he said, quote, I think it's something everybody would like to see. Any of our big superstars like Roman Reigns against any of our big superstars who can do it. We know John C. can still do it at an A-plus level. We know The Rock can still do it at an A-plus level. But ultimately, it comes down to all the boring business things like scheduling, timing, how long do we need him, how long does it take, and what other commitments does he have, so we'll see. And by the way, with all the things that are going on with all these big broadcast deals, okay, the fact that SmackDown is on Fox, you got big Fox network and all the regular that's going on, and a big company like Disney behind it. NBC Universal, big company behind USA Network. The Rock is not going to have any issue taking some time away from Hollywood to work on wrestling if he gets a chance to. John Cena pulling himself away from all the Hollywood projects he has, same thing. Because it's the WWE right now is not a step down. And I think that's one of the things that Nick Khan wants to do, is that the way this company is being portrayed, okay, Wall Street doesn't look down on this company at all. Corporate America does not look down on this company at all. Like, there are still some advertisers that will not jump on, but there's a lot. Okay, sure, you got all the fast food companies. Sure, you got like certain other things like trolleys and stuff like that, or Kit Kat or whatever. But you get Progressive Insurance to come on board. You get Cricket Wireless to come on board. You know, you're getting some decent sponsors. Hey, you're not going to get the car dealers. You're not going to get you get liquor sponsors. You get things like that, sure. So you are pulling some more sponsors and some more quality sponsors than you did before. And maybe at some point, those advertisers will pay even a bigger dollar because of the level of quality of programming that they're getting because of how big this deal is. But that's what it comes down to. It's a lot to be said. Now, another story from Deadspin also talks about how things are being put together. Because wrestling in the new Wrestling Alliance is organic. It's something new. And it's something that it hits different. Like the TikTok or something. It hits different. And this is where some WWE fans that are out there, which will not name, some of you out there that are so diehard and really just crapping on everybody else, time to stop doing that. It's time to quit looking down on what AEW and other companies are doing and just realize it's time to start embracing wrestling companies around, because the kind of wrestling that you want is going to be outside of WWE. The IWC, they should start embracing AEW totally because of what they're doing, not just for their own. Get rid of the whole thing about, the Cody and the Bucks and Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho and all that stuff, the EVPs and the control they have. You know what? Hogwash. Just take it out of there. Get all that vitriol you have out of your mind. Oh, the complaints about how they're going to be doing things different than the WWE is going to be doing. Get that out of your mind, too. It's time to go and just flush all that anger and all that resentment and bitterness that you have, and just realize that the new Wrestling Alliance is where you're going to see professional wrestling, the sport of professional wrestling. When you see the events that are coming up that are headlining and becoming important, like NWA 73 and NWA Empower, hey, NWA Car Shield's going to be a sponsor for them, so that's where Ric Flair can come on board, and Ric Flair can come on board and talk, and he'll be featured there, and an NWA ring. And then you look at NWA Empower, the opportunities, the diversity, the equity, inclusion, all the things where it's a shared ground. People are getting together. And it's a revolution. But AEW is just the conduit. What did I call it last week? I don't remember what I called it last week. I just remember I know Impact Wrestling I called the gateway. And honestly, AEW now is the nucleus of the new Wrestling Alliance. This is where everybody comes together. It's all in one spot. So everybody coming in. I mean, Impact Wrestling allowing New Japan stars, AAA stars, AEW doing the same thing. It's incredible. and it's so important to see like what's happening here and what we're getting. So Sam Fells at Deadspin writes about the fact that even CM Punk admitted it was the worst kept secret in the industry by the time he met the media after Friday's AEW Rampage, which was by design created to anticipation to sell tickets and attract eyeballs to TV for such a momentous event. We all knew what was coming and how it would look in the minutes following SmackDown that didn't detract from the moment at all. And it was in Punk's 15-minute promo, started with putting Britt Baker over and ended with him stating that the reason he was here was to vault a younger generation of wrestlers higher in a way he felt that never happened in the WWE. Punk couldn't have imagined how right he would be after looking at Summerslam on Saturday night. Now, Sam writes here and says that it's quite possible that WWE always planned to bring Becky Lynch out in Vegas. It's their biggest show post-pandemic. After Roman Reigns, she's their biggest star, and some would argue she eclipsed Reigns. They assuredly will tell you it was always the plan, but whatever CM Punk was getting up to. But whatever the plan was, and when it was conceived, optics are optics, and surely they can't ignore that it looked like they were pulling the only card they had anywhere near the one of the AEW signing one of the most popular wrestlers in the world. The card only looked worse with how badly they mangled Becky's return. The desperation that dripped from only increased the idea that this was attempting to return fire on AEW. I don't think so. No, if Sasha Banks could not compete, they decided to go this route. That's okay. It's often said that WWE is best when they have to come up with something on the fly when they have to make it up. But this desperation to have a moment wiped that out. Becky came out, squashed Bianca Belair in 30 seconds to win the SmackDown Women's title because she can't do a full match yet, and left everyone wondering what the hell just happened. And he brings the point across about Bianca Belair, puts the argument out there. One of WWE's only homegrown and properly developed stars, a fantastic worker with a Vegas-sized neon sign of a personality, came over through NXT in the Performance Center and had grown almost immeasurably over the last 2 years to the point where main eventing WrestleMania hardly seemed to reach. And that match was one of the best of the year. She carried SmackDown's still somewhat light women's division through the next few months while Sasha was gone. It was proof that WWE didn't always ignore its young talent. She is what WWE could be. But I don't think she would have held on to that belt much longer. I think the short run was what she was going to get. She's a baby face. Normally you get the heels that get the long runs with the belt. I mean, people don't like the fact of what they did. Sure. You might not like the fact of how this all came about and how, we had this kind of outcome of where things are for what they're doing. I get it. You don't like how this all turned out, that this company just chooses to kind of go the route they want to go, and seeing how Bianca Belair is being treated, how Karrion Kross is being treated, how Keith Lee's being treated, keep picking, and Nikki Ash, ASH, some of the people, some younger fans or some of the IWC might have gotten behind a little bit of, even with this superhero character, has a short one with a belt, and now we're moving on to a storyline with Charlotte Flair against Alexa Bliss and Lily being one of the focuses of the whole thing. Yeah. So for us to have to wait for some fresh feuds, not 3 months, but 6 months, maybe even longer, because that WrestleMania feud that we had with Charlotte and Rhea going back to January and then going all the way to here, and that whole run of that for 6 months, and now we move on to Alexa Bliss. So we now get a fresh feud there. With Bobby Lashley, we're getting somewhat of a fresh feud there. But it's to know that we're going to have feuds that are going to go for so long, and how they're going to be booked in between is so sluggish, and it's such a turtle pace. It's crap. But that's what they're going to do. That's how they want to do things. Okay. This is why it's important to look at the new wrestling alliance of AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan, AAA. I would like to put MLW into the mix, and I want to make this stretch out as well. I don't understand why MLW and Ring of Honor are not in the conversation with this new wrestling alliance. Why are they not involved with AEW, Impact, and the others? What is that all about? Like, I know that AAA already has a relationship with MLW. And Ring of Honor is just on an island of their own. For a long time, they were actually a great partner with New Japan. Look what they did. What happened here? Why are we at the point where, nothing's happening? I don't understand that part. Oh, well. So NWA, they're going to start doing programming. I guess the NWA Power will not be from the GPB studios for right now. They're going to take that live crowd and they're going to milk it. Billy Corgan has already announced a 4-day block of NWA programming, Saturday, August 28th to Tuesday, August 31st. And so they have the 2 days on the weekend for NWA 73 and NWA Empower. And they're going to do tapings Monday and Tuesday this week coming up for tapings. Wow. It's a lot of stuff they're doing. But we see it's really interesting what kind of crowd they're going to get over there and how big it's going to be. You're going to be Chase's Coruscant Ballroom. I don't know how big this thing is and how much they're going to be able to get. But Wrestling of the Chase was a popular program from 1959 to 1983. Produced and televised by KPLR TV Channel 11. The operations were in the hotel and the adjoining Park Plaza apartments. Many famous wrestlers, including Lou Thesz and Buddy Rogers, wrestled the program. And that one, think of Sam Mushnick's territory. So let's go through what's coming up this weekend when it comes to NWA, because I do need to take some time for that. And I'm going to do my best to go and watch both shows and be able to see if I can do a post show on Sunday night about it, because I think I'm going to do that. That's what I'm looking to do. So Empower will be Saturday the 28th, and NWA 73 will be Sunday the 29th. So first, let's talk about Empower. So far, they have on the show an interpromotional triple threat match. Representing NWA will be Kylie Ray. Representing AEW is Diamante and Chic Tormenta from AAA. Interpromotional triple threat match. I don't know who will be winning that match, but I'm not going to try to make any guesses on who's going to win. There will be a Women's Invitational Cup Gauntlet. Bianca Corelli, Chelsea Green, Debbie Malenko, Lady Frost, Jamie Senegal, Genocide, Kiera Hogan, Masa Slamovich, Tootie Lynn, and Thunder Rosa. I'll give a prediction on Deonna Purrazzo and Melina Perez for the Impact Knockouts title. Deonna's going to win. And then you have the NWA World's Women's Tag Team Championship Tournament. So 4 teams going to be in it. The Hex, which is Allison Kay and Marty Bell. Hell on Heels, Renee Michelle and Sahara 7. Red Velvet and Kylan King versus the Free Babes of Jazzy Yang, Hollywood Haley, Jay, and Miranda Gordy. And we'll see how those work out. I don't know who's going to win out of those. I'm going to take the Hex on the win. And for the NWA World Women's Championship, Camille will defend against Leela Hirsch from AEW, and I think Camille will retain. But there'll obviously be some surprises, things they're going to be doing about that. A significant all-women's pay-per-view being done for the show. I'm curious on how it's going to work out. Then the NWA's 73rd anniversary show. And to think it's been 3 years since the 70th, which Billy Corgan put together and really got NWA back on the map. Then we got NWA Power, and then just the stir up of what they were doing over there was really great. And that's why a number of stars actually made their way out of NWA and moved to other organizations. When AEW basically came in, a little bit of a pillage came in from there. But they still have some pretty good stars in their coffers right now. There will be a battle royal with 12 participants to determine the number 1 contender to the NWA National Championship. I don't know if they've already announced the names yet. Tyrus, the Masked Man, and Jordan Clearwater, accompanied by Austin Idol, will take on the Pope and the End, which consists of Odinson and Paro in a 6-man tag team match. I'll take Austin Idol's team. Brawl in the Lou, which will be Tom Latimer, Crimson, and Tim Storm. And Brawl in the Lou will be a hardcore match. No DQs, no countouts, and that's what's going to happen. NWA World Tag Team Championship on the line. Aaron Stevens and GR Kratos versus La Rebelión. Bestia 666 and Mecha Wolf 450. And I'll take Stevens and Kratos for that. For the NWA National Championship, it'll be Chris Adonis versus James Storm, and I will take James Storm over that. Title versus career for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship, it will be Nick Aldis versus Trevor Murdoch. Nick Aldis holding the 10 pounds of gold. Sweet Charlotte. And Trevor Murdoch will be putting his career on the line for this title match. And I'm going to take a guess that Trevor Murdoch actually wins that belt. Call me crazy. Trevor Murdoch wins the NWA World's Heavyweight title. I think they can make that switch at the Chase. And then we'll find out who is going up against in a tag team match. It's going to be a singles match for the NWA World's Women's Championship. It will be Camilla or Layla Hirsch against the winner of the Women's Invitational Gauntlet Cup. And then Mickie James will take on Kylie Ray in a singles match. And I think Mickie James will probably win that. Or maybe Kylie Ray. Let's go with Kylie Ray. That's where I think things will go. So I'm looking to go and probably do a post show after that, because NWA should get some of that. It's just been tough to watch because, you know, they're putting up a paywall for themselves. MLW is about to put themselves on a paywall. I don't even know if they got themselves set up yet in terms of, like, I know they're over on Vice TV, and I have not watched them since they went over there. But I feel like when I'm watching across the board, it's been tough to watch. With MLW, I'm waiting to go and find out if they're going to have anything set up when it comes to where their show is going to be airing. If I have to watch it on Vice TV or what. But it's been not easy to go and catch on. So, but I have to find out where they're going to be putting themselves on and where it comes up. But I have not had a chance to watch MLW on Vice TV and see what they're doing yet. So we have to watch. So anyway, we're going to leave it there. If anything changes on that when it comes to the NWA post show, I'll let you know. But I'm looking to go and do that this Sunday. And until we get to that this Sunday coming up, we'll watch all the wrestling from the Chase. Come back for another Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at wrestlingisreal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.